Hi, I'm Sluggy and welcome to my channel, Wheels and Whisky. Join me as I visit distilleries within easy riding distance from a local train station, enjoy new scenery and maybe a wee nip for my hip flask. The routes I use will always be linked in the description for others to try themselves.
I'm going to pause here just for a second. I just want to show you what the distillery looked like roundabout. Yes, what this portrait's doing is kind of illustrating the arable nature of the surroundings. Fife in general is known as the breadbasket of Scotland, although interestingly enough, 80% of the grain that's grown here goes into the alcohol trade. We're quite thirsty. I think that's what that says. Okay, that's our geography lesson over. So let's move a little bit into history then. So we'll start here with David I. So everybody here has a connection with the Weems family or the area. So David I then, the first king of Scotland, he makes it onto our Hall of Fame because he granted the Weems family their property and their titles back in the 1100s. James IV, like I say, he built or restored Falkland Palace. And this might seem like an insignificant moment, but it's not. The Exchequer Roll of 1494 shows that James IV ordered 6 barrels of aqua vitae, the water of life, the forerunner of whisky, from Friar John Coers at Lindores Abbey. So why is that not insignificant? Well, if a king wants this stuff, then everybody's going to want it. So suddenly whisky becomes a commodity. And here we are still today, still talking and buying, drinking whisky. Mary Queen of Scots. Very important historical figure in Scotland. And the reason that she's made it to our board is that when she was visiting Weems Castle, right here in Fife, she met a young man called Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, and he was to become her second husband. Now, she'd come over from France, a widow, a queen without a husband, horror. So the court would have been looking for somebody for her to marry. And they probably sent her to Weems because it's away from the court, all the tittle-tattle and the gossip. It was a disaster of a marriage. It only lasted 2 years. They both ended really nastily, but they did have a son. They had a son, James I of England and the 6th of Scotland, and there we created the Union of the Crowns. So that little moment at Weems Castle right here, we ended up with the United Kingdom. And then looking to the future, so Prince William, like I say, people made it to this board because of either a connection to the family or the area. So William's very much associated with St Andrews, having gone to university here. This is where he met Catherine, and he does come, he's in the area a lot still. It's somewhere that's very close to both their hearts. He has visited the distillery, but we weren't in whisky production at the time, so we wanted him to come back and have a wee dram with us. Our cask is housed in what we call a ducat, Pigeon Cottage. And these ducats were very important to the economy of a farm or a big house or a village. Because this is a conservation area, it was important that we restored our ducat. So if you imagine back in the day, all of these little nesting boxes would have been filled with pigeons. And that would have provided meat and eggs in the winter to eat. You would have got feathers for bedding, and their droppings could be used as fertiliser. So there was a commercial value to a ducat. Each of the little nesting boxes are made of terracotta tiles. And these tiles would have come probably from the Netherlands when we were trading by sea, and the tiles would have acted as ballast. So do feel free to go in and have a look. Our water couldn't be more local. You saw on the film that we use an aquifer. So there's a borehole that goes down about 100 metres through all this rock, And what we pump up is a lovely mineral-rich water. You don't really have to do much to that apart from take out some of the iron. So tomorrow morning when the guys come in, the first thing we'll do is they'll heat up the kettle. Because what we do need is plenty of hot water. Because we're going to add our grist. So water and grist are going to come down this pipe here into the mash tun. If you think of that as kind of like a big washing machine with a great big paddle, because what you don't want to get are lots of clumps of grist. You want to keep that grist nice and loose so that the hot water can start to turn those starches into sugary water. So we wash our mash 3 times. 64 degrees, 73 degrees, 84 degrees. And what we have here is our high-tech yeast weighing machine. So that line there is 3.5 kilos of yeast. Into the black bucket with some hot water, give it a good stir so that it starts to become nice and frothy, and then pour it into the tank. Same with the second yeast, 3.5 kilos, hot water, give it a good stir, and in it goes. Now these tanks, it's about 7,500 litres in here. So they'll only fill up to maybe here, maybe a bit lower, because the yeast's got to do its work. It's got to expand and bubble and get frisky and, you know, do its thing. So our stills have got quite a long neck, a steep neck like that. When I mentioned the Ducat and being a conservation area, ideally we might have liked our stills to be a little bit taller. We couldn't do that because we couldn't build any higher. So that's why there's such a long lin arm. We want lots of copper contact as the alcohol starts to steam. So, first distillation. Boil your alcohol at 80 degrees. Bubble, 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 steam, 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 steam. These nice steep sides, it's going to drip back down again and then steam back up again, and that's called reflux. And we want lots of that reflux because we want a light whiskey. So a different shaped still, you'd maybe get a heavier, oilier whiskey. And that's really it. Dead easy. I did ask our head distiller, so come on, distill down for me what whiskey making process is. And he said, all it really is transferring hot water by a series of valves into different tanks, or hot liquid into a series of different tanks. That's it.
Yeah.
Where did you get that?
I presume those two go together.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay, cash.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Our little tiny Italian package.
As we just completed a tour of the Kingsbarn Distillery, a really good tour, a lot of good information, not just about the distillery itself, about Scottish whisky in general, so we recommend it, and also had a nice bite to eat for lunch. So now heading back to Lookers to get the train. But if you like this video and want to see more, please like and subscribe.